Exposed. How my daughter-in-law's shocking scheme of 30 days transformed our lives forever. Ruth sat at the kitchen table, the warm, flaky crust of an apple pie cooling beside her, but her heart felt anything but cozy. The quaint town of Maplewood, known for its charming sycamore-lined streets and mouth-watering bakery, suddenly felt alien to her. Jessica, her new daughter-in-law, just dropped a bombshell. A 30-day challenge aimed at making their family closer while reaching out to the community. Hearing this felt like an uproar in her peaceful existence. Why disrupt what works? Ruth muttered to herself, clenching her coffee cup like it was her lifeline. She pictured Mike, her son, nodding earnestly in support of Jessica, as he often did. Unlike her, Jessica was all about fresh ideas, and it made Ruth's skin crawl. The thought of change sent an uncomfortable knot deep in her stomach, a hard reminder of everything she held dear. As the first week unfolded, Jessica's enthusiasm was relentless. She lined up small acts of kindness, helping an elderly neighbor with groceries, volunteering at the food pantry, and even hosting coffee meetups for single moms who needed some encouragement. At first, there were smiles and casual hellos, but instead of building familial bonds, it laid bare the disparities between their lives. Ruth felt her heart race when she saw Jessica's genuine camaraderie with those who struggled, while she herself felt adrift among the well-off, resentful of the very weaknesses Jessica sought to embrace. Before long, Ruth's grounded self-reliance began to crack under the weight of conflicting visions. Did Jessica truly care about these people? Or was this all just a way to show off her moral superiority? The doubting voice grew louder until she couldn't ignore it. The old biases began to bubble up, and Ruth found herself choking on her unspoken judgments. Then came that fateful night. Ruth tiptoed down the hallway and spotted Jessica sobbing over family photos sprawled across the living room floor, old, faded images revealing a childhood of poverty that made Ruth's heart drop. Each tear Jessica shed felt like a heavy stone against Ruth's chest. An unexpected floodgate of emotions opened wide. Ruth, the sturdy caregiver, suddenly saw the fragile girl behind the ambitious woman. It spun her world on its axis. After that, even as the challenge continued, Ruth's resentment mixed with newfound clarity. Could they really bridge their family gap through Jessica's modern approach? A week later, their town hall meeting arrived, the final stage of this ambitious challenge laid out before the community. As the crowd's murmur filled the air, Ruth felt a storm brewing inside her. And when tensions escalated, it was hard not to feel the heat of harsh words reflected back at her. Yet Ruth soon realized, this was not about winning. The urgency for reconciliation whispered loudly, demanding attention. With love hanging in the balance, the question loomed: could Ruth find a way to knit together her old-fashioned values with Jessica's heartfelt intentions? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ruth felt the stakes rising higher than ever, the collective eyes of Maplewood boring into her as she stood on the edge of her fears. Could it be that this challenge would be the very thing to knit them closer together? Or would it unravel the fabric of their family forever? Time was ticking, and love hung in the balance, igniting hope and dread in equal measure. Could they really shift the course of their lives together, or was fracture their only choice? As Ruth stood before the crowd, the weight of her family's expectations bore down on her. She glanced at Jessica, who was radiating a semblance of confidence, her eyes glimmering with determination. The warmth of her husband's smile also broke through her apprehension. Yet Ruth felt more like an outsider in her own home than ever. The small-town gym echoed with anticipation, swarming with neighbors and friends. It was time to speak. The town hall meeting had transformed from a mere gathering into an arena where vulnerabilities would lay bare the cracks in their family's foundation. Ruth cleared her throat, her heart racing. She could feel her palms growing sweaty. But now there was no turning back. "Thank you all for coming," she began, steeling herself under the sea of watching faces. "I know some of you have come to hear about our 30-day challenge, About the kindness we've been trying to spread in Maplewood. The murmurs quieted, and she continued, "It has been humbling. But I've learned something during these days." She hesitated, taking a breath, and felt Jessica South's encouraging gaze drive her onward. "It has shown me just how differently each of us experiences life. To see the smiles on the faces of those in need, to feel their gratitude." A rumble traveled through the crowd, and Ruth could see some nodding in agreement. Yet the knot in her stomach tightened. She needed to reveal more, to share her truth, to connect with every person in that room beyond their circumstances. "And it has also opened my eyes to my own biases," she confessed, her voice shaky yet resolute. "I thought I had everything figured out, that my way of life was enough. But I was wrong." The words tumbled out, raw and near the edge of vulnerability. Seeing Jessica's spirit, her willingness to engage with our community, it made me confront my own fears. There was a pause. Ruth felt the shift, the collective breath held, uncertainty hanging thick in the air. It became impossible not to recognize the flicker of emotion in the crowd. It was critical, and this acknowledgement felt like crossing a bridge. "I can't say why I resisted her ideas so fiercely," she continued, tears brimming. "It was out of fear. Fear of the unknown and fear of losing my family." The honesty stripped down her protective walls. Silence enveloped the room, weaving a quiet connection between her and those listening. When she looked at Jessica, their eyes locked, and in that moment, Ruth saw not only a daughter-in-law but a partner and ally. As she gathered her thoughts, an escalating conversation broke out from the back of the room. Voices rose, each offering their own experiences, stories of hardship, of triumph, and moments of everyday kindness that shifted their own lives. Something electric sparked in her. It was like attending a reunion of shared struggles and hopes. As the meeting progressed, Ruth felt her heart swell. Community wasn't just about helping others. It was an embrace that cocooned them all together, regardless of their differences. But as praises echoed around her, doubts clawed at the edges of her mind. Would this moment be a breakthrough, or yet another dramatic dead end in their relationship? Finally, as the meeting drew to a close, Ruth stood at the center of a whirlwind. The pulse of her family so close yet still teetering on the edge of uncertainty. Could she gather the strength to bridge the divide between the past and this uncertain future with Jessica? The light-hearted chatter began to fade, but the unease remained. The evening's journey had only begun. With a lingering uncertainty in her heart, Ruth wondered if their reconciliation was within reach, or if they were only beginning to unravel deeper truths. In the back of her mind, a chilling question lingered. Would they find enough strength to change the narrative of their lives together? Or would the revelations of their past haunt the very intent that sparked this challenge? Ruth stepped down from the small stage, her heart still racing from the outpouring of words. The gym felt brighter, filled with the gentle hum of conversation, warm and hopeful. Yet, as the crowd dispersed, a knot still twisted in her stomach. Jessica approached with a cautious smile, her eyes brimming with an understanding that felt both comforting and intimidating. "Ruth, you were amazing up there," Jessica said, her voice soft but filled with energy. "I knew you had it in you." "I'm not sure it was enough," Ruth admitted, fidgeting with the hem of her blouse. "Did I really capture what I needed to say? Did I just add to the noise?" Her voice quivered slightly, self-doubt crept back in, despite the warm reactions she received. "Trust me, you touched people tonight," Jessica reassured her. "They need to hear this kind of honesty. We all do." As the gym emptied, the weight of Jessica's words settled over Ruth. Did they truly need her honesty, or had she merely scratched the surface of their struggles? Around her, the echoes of heartfelt stories filled the air. Yet here she was, still teetering on the edges of her own truth. "Can we talk?" Jessica asked. The question hung between them like a fragile thread. Ruth hesitated, mentally sifting through the remnants of their past arguments. "Sure," she finally said, though the uncertainty loomed larger. They found a quieter corner, the clatter of folding chairs and leftover voices fading into the background. "I know things haven't been easy," Jessica started, her tone dipping to something more sincere. "Tonight felt like a breakthrough. But I also know you're feeling uncertain." Ruth felt the tension of the moment build. Jessica's words resonated, offering an opening that felt both inviting and intimidating. "I'm worried. What if I can't keep this up? What if I fall back into old patterns after this challenge? What if I fail? Jessica reached out, placing a reassuring hand on Ruth's wrist. Failure is part of the journey. What's important is that you're opening up. We're all figuring it out together. The warmth of her touch grounded Ruth. In that simple act was an offering of genuine partnership. I want to believe that, Ruth murmured, blinking back tears. But change feels so daunting. I've spent so long in my bubble, disconnected. That's why this challenge is vital. It's not just about each of us helping others. It's about transforming ourselves along the way, Jessica replied, the intensity of her voice breaking through Ruth's hesitation. You're not alone in this is our shared challenge now. As their eyes locked, Ruth felt a glimmer of hope. Yet, with the transparency came an unsettling truth. The road ahead wouldn't be smooth. It was easy to talk about change, but could she genuinely embrace it? Just then the gym doors swung open, and a group of familiar faces entered, people from their neighborhood, their friends, their community. They were ready to join in the challenge, each holding a small token of kindness, eager to take part in the movement Ruth had tentatively sparked. Ruth's heart raced again, but this time, it was excitement mingled with fear. This was more than a personal challenge. It was an awakening for all of them. Look, we have support. Jessica beamed. We're not in this alone. But deep within, a flicker of doubt lingered. Ruth wasn't just afraid of failing the challenge. She was terrified of what the challenge would reveal about herself, both to her community and to her family. As they walked towards the gathering, Ruth asked herself one pressing question. Would this journey redefine their family ties? Or would it expose wounds too deep to heal? In the vivid rush of anticipation, Ruth braced herself for what revelations lay ahead. Could she truly transform, and not just for herself, but for everyone who was counting on her? Ruth took a deep breath as she approached the gathering. Her palms were sweaty, and the warmth of Jessica's hand lingered on her skin. A reminder that she wasn't alone, even amidst the brewing storm of emotions. The familiar faces in the gym exuded a mix of encouragement and anticipation. Laughter mixed with gentle chatter. And Ruth could see small connections blossoming among people who had felt isolated. This challenge, meant to inspire kindness, was beginning to stitch together frayed ties within their community. Hey Ruth, called out a voice from across the room, Sam from the book club. He waved his hand, a bright smile lighting up his face. Loved your speech. It was so real. I'm in for the challenge. Ruth returned his smile, but inside, a chorus of nerves roared. What do I say next? She wondered, her heart thumping like a drum. Were they really here to support her mission, or were they merely swept up in the moment? Let us start by sharing what kindness means to us, Jessica suggested, her enthusiasm infectious. We can begin to brainstorm the small acts we can do for one another over the next month. Ruth watched as a few participants nodded, their eyes sparkling with ideas. As they began to share their thoughts, Ruth sensed the energy in the room shift. Stories spilled forth about the neighbor who always offered to help with groceries, the friend who sent chocolate during a tough week, the little gestures that had paved their journey through loneliness. Each word washed over her like a gentle wave, smoothing away her unease. Just a bit in those moments, Ruth felt a shift within herself. It was not just about bravery on her part. It was about allowing vulnerability to shine through the cracks of each shared story. It was okay to not have all the answers or the perfect plan. I think kindness is seeing someone, really seeing them, even when they're hurting, said Marissa, whose soft voice trembled with passion. The group quieted down, drawn into the sincerity of her words. When you know someone's pain, you can help them heal. That simple statement echoed in Ruth's mind. The power of recognition, of seeing and acknowledging each other's struggles. That was it. It was about connection. Just then, Ruth felt a nudge in her spirit. Perhaps this challenge wasn't just about her journey, but about being a catalyst for a deeper movement among them all. She took a step forward, her voice stronger than before. I want to test the waters of connection. Let us not only do acts of kindness, but share our own struggles too. Let us be real with one another, no facades. Excitement rippled through the crowd, everyone seeming to recognize the truth in her suggestion. A mix of apprehension and eagerness filled the air. Jessica smiled widely, her eyes glistening. That's the spirit. Let us create a space where we can post the challenges or hardships we're facing. Everyone can contribute. A low murmur of agreement spread, and together they brainstormed ideas, capturing their intentions on sticky notes. Ruth felt lighter as the conversations flowed, experiencing a sweet buoyancy in the shared purpose. Yet beneath this surface of hope and camaraderie, fear lurked. Could she keep peeling away the layers of her own challenges? Would being that transparent with her community be met with acceptance, or would it unearth more pain than healing? As laughter echoed around her and small acts of kindness were shared, Ruth's heartbeat quickened again. The deeper they dove into the challenge, the more she felt the waves of truth crashing over her. When she looked around, she understood that this endeavor was bigger than her. What if we embraced vulnerability as strength? She wondered aloud, a flicker of excitement igniting within her. The room went silent, all eyes on her, curiosity painted across their faces. But as Ruth gazed at her friends and neighbors, one troubling thought pierced through her excitement. What if, in unraveling her truth, she accidentally tore apart the delicate ties that bound them all? The question hung in the air, thick and heavy, urging her to either step fully into the light or retreat into the shadows once more. The silence seemed to stretch, wrapping around Ruth like an uneasy embrace. She could sense the weight of anticipation, a collective breath held just for her. It was a moment filled with potential and invitation to open the door to her heart. What if we really did that? Jessica broke the hush, her voice vibrant with energy. What if we all shared our stories? Not just the easy ones but the hard parts too. Like, I don't know, maybe the struggles with work or family. That would be true vulnerability. Ruth held her breath. Jessica's words spiraled into light and darkness, glittering with possibility yet shadowed by fear. Could she really do it? The thought of baring her soul felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. In a room full of friends, her honesty could either bond them in solidarity or fracture their connections irreparably. Marissa chimed in, lifting her chin. I mean, we're all here for a reason, right? To create a community of support and kindness. Isn't sharing the hardest parts of our lives what makes us human? Ruth felt a knot in her throat loosen slightly. They were all in this together, vulnerable and raw. Sharing felt like a collective leap into the unknown, a chance to strengthen their bonds or collapse under the weight of their truths. Okay, she finally said, her voice trembling yet clear. Let us do it. But let us promise to listen without judgment. Each story we share should be treated with respect, no matter how messy it gets. Can we agree on that? Heads nodded, a ripple of affirmative murmurs spreading like a wave. Hope blossomed in Ruth's chest, warming her like a spring sun. She could actually feel it. This was their commitment, an unspoken promise to walk alongside one another. Sam raised his hand, his gaze steady and kind. I'll start. He took a deep breath, a brief pause lingering in the air. I think when I lost my job last year, I didn't just lose a paycheck. I lost my sense of purpose, my confidence. It made me question everything, like, am I even good enough? But sharing that with my wife made me feel less alone. His honesty washed over the group, a raw, beautiful exchange that sparked a new energy. People leaned in closer, intent on listening. Ruth felt her heart swell, her worries beginning to dissipate. As others shared similar stories, financial hardships, feelings of inadequacy, broken relationships, Ruth noticed how their faces transformed. Vulnerability unveiled a shared humanity, a deep understanding that flowed among them. Tear-streaked cheeks, hopeful smiles, and nodding heads became their language of connection. Ruth's own struggle loomed at the back of her mind, tempting her to break the barrier of her own story but tangled in uncertainty. Would they rally around her? Or would her truth push them away? It was time for her, the moment of reckoning. As she started, her voice wavering. I haven't always been honest about my struggles. I lost my dad last year and it wrecked me. I felt like I was drowning, lost in grief. I didn't know how to reach out for help. But seeing all of you here makes me realize I think it's okay to admit that I'm still healing. A comfortable silence enveloped Ruth, a safe space created by understanding. She waited, heart racing, for their reactions. Their eyes softened, and she could see warmth in the faces around her, a collective embrace of her vulnerability. Just as a wave of relief washed over her, she caught a glimpse of Jessica, her mouth parting with surprise, curiosity, and empathy. Ruth, thank you for sharing that. You're incredibly brave. But beneath that warmth, doubt began to creep back in. The question now loomed larger. Would her revelation truly strengthen their connections, or would it drive them apart? With every eye upon her, every heartbeat synchronized in the room, she realized one undeniable truth: this challenge had opened the door to more than just kindness. It had opened the vault of their deepest fears and desires. As the night wore on, the conversation swirled and deepened, a now tangled web of stories and emotions. Yet Ruth couldn't shake the discomfort inside her. Was it possible that by sharing too much, she would expose them all to unseen dangers? But she couldn't hold back any longer. The challenge wasn't just about kindness, was it? Maybe, just maybe, it was about love in its most fragile form. Yet, in the back of her mind, another question began to crystallize. How much of themselves were they truly willing to expose? Ruth took a deep breath, her chest tight with hope and anxiety. The warmth from her friends felt almost electric, but the weight of her truth lingered in the air. They had taken brave steps into the unknown. Yet she felt her own reluctance like a shield she couldn't quite drop. As Sam shared another story, one about navigating the rocky patches in his marriage, Ruth watched the exchange with rapt attention. Each confession was layered with vulnerability, yet it was also a celebration of resilience. She couldn't help but feel that this was a pivotal moment for all of them. The barriers they had built around their lives were slowly crumbling. Sometimes, I think we hide the parts of us that are messy and complicated, Marissa said, her eyes glimmering with sincerity. But those moments shape us. They teach us more than the happy endings ever could. We're all in this together. A nod of agreement rippled through the group. Ruth's heart quickened. The perspective was comforting. Could sharing these uncomfortable truths really create deeper connections? She made a silent vow. She would contribute, no matter how hard it might be. Jessica leaned in closer, her voice soft yet filled with conviction. You know, my mom nearly lost her battle with cancer last year. I wanted to be strong for her, but inside, I was terrified. I kept thinking, what if she didn't make it? What would I do? Tears rolled down her cheeks as the others looked on, respectful and engaged. But then I realized it's okay to be vulnerable. It doesn't make you weak. It connects us. Their stories wove together, building a tapestry of experiences that showed the beauty born from hardship. Ruth felt a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. What if her story sliced through the fragile threads they had begun to weave? What if it shattered the sanctuary they were attempting to create? But this was her moment. She had stepped to the edge. It was time to leap. Gathering her courage, she opened her mouth. I think I want to talk about how my dad's death changed everything for me. It's still raw, and some days are harder than others. The vulnerability in her voice was palpable. Ruth took a breath, feeling the room exhale with her. He was my anchor, and when he was gone, I felt lost. I started pushing people away, because I thought I needed to handle it on my own. But truthfully, I was just terrified to share how empty I felt. Silence settled again. But this time it felt different, charged with understanding. Ruth's heart raced as she looked around the room, finding their faces painted with empathy. Jessica wiped her cheeks, whispering, Ruth, thank you. We're here for you. You're not alone. Ruth's hands trembled as she wiped away her own tears, the old hurt mingling with newfound hope. What she didn't expect was how fiercely connected she felt to her friends in that moment. Each nod, each touch of a hand, conveyed an unspoken agreement they were all here, willing to bear each other's burdens. That connection ignited something deep within her. It wasn't just about shared pain. It was about forging strength in an open-hearted community. Would she dare to keep sharing? As the night carried on, laughter mingled with tears, the atmosphere thick with a sense of belonging. Yet in the corner of Ruth's mind, a new question arose: what happens when the truth you share becomes a burden for someone else? Would her story bring them closer still? Or would revealing more create walls between their hearts? The sincerity in the air sparked a flame of curiosity. They were facing something powerful together. But what would unfold as they continued to explore their interwoven stories? Was vulnerability really as beautiful as it felt? Ruth's gaze drifted to the door, wondering what lay ahead as they trudged through this journey together. Would they emerge even stronger? Or would the weight of their truths become too much to bear? The night felt electric, and she knew this was just the beginning. The atmosphere hummed with an energy that was almost tangible. Ruth's heart, still racing, began to settle into a gentle rhythm, matching the ebb and flow of laughter and conversation around her. It felt like a tightrope walk, balancing on the edge between camaraderie and raw honesty. Each wave of laughter intertwined with a cautious vulnerability, creating a safe space where secrets could breathe. As the warmth from her friends settled deeper, Ruth listened intently to Marissa, who was now recounting a moment of profound loss, how she had lost her grandmother just after her wedding day. "It was supposed to be the happiest time of my life," Marissa said, her voice thick with emotion. "But when the cake was being cut, I felt the void where she should have been. I never expected that moment would feel so heavy." The table fell into a subdued silence, eyes glistening with shared sorrow. It was the kind of silence that wrapped around them, making their collective pain feel palpable, yet strangely soothing. "I know that feeling," Ruth said softly, surprising herself with how the words spilled out. "The world goes on, and you're just stuck in a moment that only you seem to understand." Sam, who had been listening quietly, suddenly raised his glass. "To those we lost, and to those who remind us to keep living," he said, his eyes shining fiercely. The group mirrored his emotion, raising their glasses in solidarity, the clinking of their drinks echoing a promise not to forget. That a small smile teased the corners of Ruth's lips as she felt a warmth spread through her. Those simple, shared moments of vulnerability and connection opened avenues for deeper understanding. But as soon as the warmth spread, a lingering worry crept in. Was she prepared for the next wave of revelations? The deeper truths they still had yet to unearth? "What about you, Sam?" Jessica asked, her curiosity piqued as she leaned forward. "What is something you've struggled with that most people don't see?" Sam's expression shifted from light-hearted to serious, the weight of his own truth palpable in the air. "I've always thought I had to be the strong one," he murmured. "But sometimes, that strength feels like a mask. I lost my brother to suicide 3 years ago. I thought keeping it to myself would protect everyone, but really, all it did was isolate me." The tension in the room thickened, and the sadness settled over them like a heavy blanket. Ruth's heart ached in her chest. She could feel the atmosphere shift again, a mixture of sorrow and guilt. Sam's admission hung heavily, and Ruth wondered how much more could they share before the weight became unbearable. She also thought about the blend of emotions swirling within herself. Was it really a burden to share their stories? Or was it liberating? With every tear shed, weren't they also lightening the load they carried? "Do you think it would have been different if you had opened up earlier?" Ruth asked, her voice steady yet soft. The question hung in the air, a fragile bubble ready to burst. Sam paused, his brow furrowing as he deliberated. "Maybe. But I think it's hard for us to see how powerful sharing can be until we're actually standing on the precipice. It's a risk." As they contemplated the significance of vulnerability, Ruth felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. She had taken the first leap tonight. What if they all took that risk together? "Maybe we make a pact," she suggested suddenly, emboldened by the unity around her. "A pact to keep uncovering our truths, no matter how hard." The group exchanged glances, and one by one, they nodded, sealing the promise with silent agreement. But just as the warmth returned, a nervous anticipation bubbled beneath the surface. What would happen when they ventured deeper? Would their collective promise strengthen them? Or would it expose fractures they hadn't yet anticipated? Ruth's heart pounded. They stood at the brink of something powerful, and as the night wore on, she couldn't help but wonder what their next revelations would reveal. Would they all emerge from this together, or would the weight of their truths begin to unravel them? A sudden chill crept through her, whispering a question that loomed larger than the others. What truths lay buried, waiting to be unleashed? As the hours crept by, the atmosphere at the table grew thicker with emotion. Laughter still punctuated the air, but threads of tension wove themselves into their shared stories. Each laugh felt like a release valve for the unspoken worries lurking just beneath the surface. Ruth glanced around the table. Marissa was lost in thought, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass absent-mindedly. Jessica gazed down, as if weighing secrets that threatened to spill. Sam, still processing his own truth, seemed to wrestle with the heaviness of his exposure. Okay, Marissa finally broke the silence, her voice a soft tremor. I guess it's my turn to dive deeper. Since we're all in this together, she paused, swallowing hard. I've never really talked about what happened the week of my wedding. That's when I lost my grandma. It's a part of me that has always felt fractured. Ruth leaned in closer, the collective breath of the group encouraging her to open up more. Marissa took a steadying breath, her gaze fixed on the table. After the ceremony, when everyone else was laughing and celebrating, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was betraying her memory. It's like I had to play the part of the happy bride while my heart was breaking. Tears glistened in her eyes, and Ruth felt the emotional weight settle on her chest. It was true, the dichotomy of happiness and sorrow was often too much to bear. You weren't betraying her, Marissa, Ruth said softly. She would want you to enjoy your life. You carry her with you. The words seemed to hang in the air, settling like dust. They were true, but the echoes of loss lingered heavily. Ruth was surprised by her own voice carrying so much conviction. Perhaps the shared vulnerability was unlocking something deep within her that a hush fell over them. The kind that feels as if the world has paused. Jessica cleared her throat, breaking the spell. My turn. Her voice sliced through the silence, revealing the shaky territory they were navigating together. I lost my dad 6 years ago. He was my rock, my everything. After he passed, I thought I'd be fine because I still had my family. But every moment without him felt like losing a piece of my foundation. Ruth held her breath. Jessica's admission made the air in the room shimmer, raw and palpable. They were shattering walls, piece by piece. Sam placed his hand over Jessica's, a gentle gesture of solidarity. You're not alone in feeling that way, he said, the connection evident in his eyes. I thought I had to hold my family together after my brother died, but it almost broke me. Ruth shifted in her seat, sensing that something deeper bubbled beneath the surface. We all paint masks to protect ourselves, don't we? She mused out loud, her mind racing. But what if we let those masks slip away? Wouldn't it feel like freedom? Jessica replied quietly, a hint of hope laced in her voice. Or chaos, Marissa rebutted gently, her brow furrowed with concern. A collective tension hung, a hold-your-breath moment nestled in their midst. What lay beyond those masks? Waiting to be seen. Then, as if released from a spell, laughter erupted again, but it was different this time, lighter, freer. Each chuckle felt like a small piece of pain melting away. Ruth's heart raced as she realized the power they held in this moment. Combined stories, both the joyful and the devastating, had the capacity to reshape their experiences. With every share, they were building a foundation layer by layer, for what could come next. As they wiped tears and chuckled, Ruth caught a glimpse of her own unvoiced fears. What was her truth? What had she kept locked away? Just as she was about to speak, a loud bang echoed from the kitchen area. Everyone turned, startled. What was that? Sam asked, eyes wide. Ruth's heart raced again, this time with anticipation. The night still has secrets, she thought, her mind on edge. What other raw truths awaited them? What unforeseen revelations lurked just around the corner? The shattering sound echoed her own worries, and she couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was just the beginning. The crash reverberated against the walls, sending shockwaves through their fragile vulnerability. In that moment, laughter faded, replaced by a heavy silence that felt almost sacred. Ruth's heart thudded loudly in her chest, each beat echoing the feeling of anticipation that lingered in the air. What was that? Marissa's voice trembled, eyes darting toward the kitchen like a startled bird. Jessica strained to hear, leaning slightly forward. I'll check it out, Sam finally suggested, his determination breaking the tension. He stood, a shadow of courage. Wait, Ruth said, a sudden thought racing through her mind. What if it's she hesitated, then forced herself to finish the sentence. What if it's something deep? Something we need to talk about? The room fell silent again, the weight of her words settling like a blanket. Sam's brow furrowed, caught between investigating the noise and staying with the emotional moments brewing at the table. Maybe it isn't just a clumsy move by the cat, Jessica added tentatively, a slight edge of humor aimed to lighten the mood. But the laughter that usually followed didn't arrive. Ruth took a deep breath. Can we just stay here for a moment? The request hung in the air, demanding respect. Let us not hide from the noise or what it might bring. Marissa and Jessica exchanged glances, uncertainty weaving through the space between them. Finally, Sam nodded, sitting back down, a hint of relief washing over his features. Okay. Let us stay. What's really blocking us from being free? Ruth asked, uncertainty creeping into her voice. But deep inside, she felt a spark. This honesty could bring about transformation. Marissa fiddled with her glass again, the slight fidgeting the only sign of her internal conflict. It's easy to talk about loss, about the people we've missed. But what happens when we think about what we've lost within ourselves? Ruth leaned forward, sensing the rawness of the moment. You mean the dreams we haven't chased? The pieces of us that we've buried? Exactly, Marissa replied. Like I buried parts of me when my grandma died. I was so caught up in my grief, I forgot to nurture the growth that comes from it from her memory. Sam's eyes lit up with understanding. Yeah, I thought I had to be the strong one, the glue holding everyone together, but I just felt lost. It's like everyone else saw me as this solid wall, but behind it, I was crumbling. Letting go of those masks, as we talked about earlier, means risking a lot, Jessica said, her voice now steadier. It means confronting who we really are, without the safety net of expectations. Suddenly, the crash from the kitchen didn't seem so daunting. It felt like a prelude, an awakening of truths that had been hiding in the shadows. They were stepping into something bigger than sharing losses. They were moving toward healing. Isn't that what we're doing here? Ruth said more to herself than anyone else. Facing those inner storms together? Silence enveloped them again, but this time it felt different. It was filled with possibility, an unspoken agreement to dive deeper, to crack open the weight they had been carrying individually. As if cued, the unmistakable sound of something being dropped echoed from the kitchen again, louder this time. And with it came a growl, not from the cat but something else, something heavy and ominous. Maybe tonight is about more than just our truths, Marissa whispered, fear lacing her voice. Ruth's heart quickened. There was something waiting to unravel, just out of sight. The knock of fate, the clatter of destiny unfolding. And as they all turned their heads toward the kitchen, Ruth couldn't shake the feeling that every secret was about to be laid bare. Should we go see? She mouthed, but the words barely formed. The moment was electric with both anxiety and excitement. As the door swung open, Ruth felt a rush of emotions. What would they find? What new layers would be uncovered? What if the secrets lurking there were intertwined with their own? This night wasn't done yet, and something told her the journey was only just beginning. Ruth stood frozen at the threshold, her heart hammering against her chest like a frantic drummer, urging her to act. The kitchen lay beyond the doorway, shadows dancing as a flickering light bulb cast eerie shapes on the walls. Should we check it out? Marissa whispered, her voice laced with a mix of excitement and fear. The air was thick with trepidation, like a first day of school or stepping to the edge of a diving board. Yes, Jessica said firmly, her eyes shining with determination. We can't ignore it. Together, they moved toward the kitchen, each step a mix of hesitation and eagerness. When they crossed the threshold, an unexpected sight greeted them. Their beloved cat, Oliver, had knocked over a jar of pickles, and now glass and brine lay scattered across the floor, glinting in the dull light. Just Oliver, Sam chuckled, relief flooding his features as laughter erupted in the small group. But beneath the giggles simmered a deeper truth, one they had all been skirting around like a delicate dance. Jessica bent to help clean up, and Ruth felt drawn to share her burdens more than ever. You know, she started, her voice soft yet husky with emotion. All this talk about loss has made me realize just how much I've bottled up. I was scared to let anyone see my vulnerabilities. The room quieted, every face turning to her, open and welcoming. Ruth took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of their support wrapping around her like a security blanket. I lost my dad last year, yes, but that is just part of it. I've buried so many parts of myself in the process. Jessica's gaze softened, her understanding palpable. What parts? She asked softly. It's everything, Ruth breathed. The laughter I used to share. The dreams I tucked away because I thought I had to be strong for everyone around me. It feels like I've been hiding while life moved on around me. Marissa nodded, her eyes reflecting the struggle too familiar. That's something I've felt as well. We shield ourselves. We don't want to burden each other. But the truth is, Ruth continued, her voice gaining strength, it's this journey, this connection that helps us heal. Silence wrapped around them, thick and comforting. Ruth ventured deeper, fueled by their acceptance. I think it's time for all of us to unearth our truths, not just the painful ones. To step into our dreams, even if it means rewriting our stories. The intensity hung in the air, building like a crescendo. Sam raised his hand, his sincerity deep. What if we named our dreams tonight? What if we wrote down those dreams in front of each other, and then shared how we plan to chase them? Ruth felt her heart swell. Yes, let us do that. Let us not let fear hold us any longer. With a surge of energy, everyone delved into their own thoughts, scribbling on sticky notes. Laughter mingled with solemn reflection as they voiced their dreams aloud. Marissa dreamed of opening a small bakery, honoring her grandmother's love for pastries. Jessica aspired to be a social worker, guiding families through their struggles. Sam wanted to write a book, capturing the wisdom that had emerged through his own hardship. Ruth's heart raced. She knew she had to voice her dreams. I want to revive the community garden in Maplewood, create a space where everyone can gather and share their stories, like we're doing now. The group erupted with cheers, the excitement filling the air. In that moment, Ruth saw the veil of fear lifting. They were not just survivors of their pasts. They were dreamers, blossoming into a supportive network, a family of sorts. As they stacked their sticky notes on the kitchen table, their laughter echoed with a newfound vibrancy. Jessica turned to her, her eyes sparkling. Ruth, do you see how powerful this is? We're unveiling ourselves, and we're only getting started. Ruth felt a warmth flood her heart. Yes, and it feels beautiful. In that light-hearted chaos of shared dreams, all their past burdens faded away. They were unmasked now, not just friendly faces, but tender souls weaving together a tapestry of second chances, of healing and hope. Ruth couldn't help but think of the journey ahead. There would be challenges, and the road would not always be smooth, but standing amidst her friends, she realized they had already crossed the greatest hurdle: vulnerability. As the moon cast a bright glow outside, Ruth felt a sense of belonging envelop her, a connection that reached beyond their individual struggles. They were together now, committed to forging ahead, to lifting each other up. And in that shared promise, she knew this challenge was only the beginning of their blossoming journey, where transformation lay at every turn, ready to be embraced. With joy and lightness in her heart, Ruth whispered softly, "This is our story now." The group nodded in unison, excited for their new beginning. A family united through love and honesty. Now it was time to stay connected and show support for these stories that meant so much to their hearts. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation, because you need them to know they're not alone. Comment with your reactions and feelings about the ending. Your voice matters. Let's lift each other up.